Good afternoon. Welcome to what was supposed to be the final webinar of Ratcheting Up the Rigor. I sincerely apologize for the technical difficulties. I actually think I realized the issue was on my computer and not with the intermediate unit itself. I believe I needed a software update. That being said, I thought that this was at least a reasonable way to send across the same message. And the piece that's missing, though, is the opportunity to dialogue with me. So I would encourage you, if you have questions or concerns or need to talk about anything, please give me a holler and we can talk about whatever it is that you need support in. The first item up to discuss is to remind you about the Act 45/48 hours. At the end of the year, you will be given 30 hours for all the work that you've done, which would be equivalent to 1 credit. That includes the 2 days that you attended in June, really just the 2 webinars because the November webinar was canceled, and then the half day, which is now been scheduled for June 19th as the completion of the final sort of science fair project. I will be touching base with everybody who initially participated to find out how many still are. I know that we had 2 districts that, with the requirement for their participation in the teacher evaluation pilot and some other things that they had taken on with their school improvement requirements, that they have chosen to back out and they're not concerned about receiving the hours. No, they need to do the rigor work, but will have to do so at a later date. If we get to the point where we only have a few of us who are doing so, maybe we can adjust the date, and maybe we can all have lunch together and talk about what was accomplished, where you still need to go, etc. So we might need to be a little bit flexible on that with that June 19th. But as of right now, June 19th, half a day, as long as everybody's there. And I'm going to touch base in the next week or so to try and figure that out. If we would go ahead with the July or the June 19th date, the final project that each are supposed to do, this is just a reminder that your final project really should be aligned to your action plan that you submitted last fall. And if you veered off of your original action plan, if you could submit those changes to me so that I know what to expect when it comes time to the actual submission of your project. The expectations for the project are that with whatever you identified as your pilot group, to work to increase the classroom rigor. So if that was just one teacher, that was a whole class, that was a whole building, that varied from district to district. What we wanted you to do was to work with that pilot group to increase the instructional practices, increase the rigor of the instructional practices and the assessments in that classroom, and to monitor those particular changes that were taking place, with the intent to note any specific changes that you see with respect to student behavior and achievement, and be able to have evidence of those things that you implemented and the results of the implementation of those things. Ideally, you'd be using a 3-sided sort of science fair board to display your evidence at the June session on June 19th, so that others can do a gallery walk, see what you've presented, and give you an opportunity to talk with each of the other teams to learn about what they've done. Wanted to remind you about the resources that are available as you continue your work here in probably the last 4 or 5 months of work. If you went to the Beaver Valley Intermediate's website that's listed there and scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll be able to click on the link for Moodle. The username is Rigor with a capital R, and the password is BVIU, all caps, and that will give you access to all of the materials we used and some that I've added additionally there, and I'll be adding a couple more today based on the information I'll be sharing here shortly. Just a couple of reminders. I believe that you're aware of this, but in case you aren't, there have been some changes with respect to the Common Core movement from PDE's perspective. The PSSA, which was slighted for grades 3 through 5 to shift to the Common Core next spring, or the spring of 2014, has actually been pushed back another year to the spring of 2015. I would caution you to not be alarmed, that if in fact you've started the work, I would continue the work. We need to be moving in this direction. And if you're teaching more rigorously to more rigorous standards, your students are going to perform better on the PSSA, on the standard current PSSA. If you are concerned, there may be an item or two that is still eligible for the current PSSA that would not be eligible based on the Common Core because it's no longer taught at that particular grade level. You could do a couple of mini lessons to support that on sort of those days that you would consider down days, perhaps an end of a unit day, something like that. It's an end of the unit and you've got 2 days before the spring break, for example. Put in a few mini lessons to fix those things or to shore up that missing piece. But the reality is that the shift is not happening until the spring of 2015, when everybody will move. And the reason they're not doing that is some significant concern about the teacher evaluation system, and that if they went ahead in changing the assessment for grades 3 through 5 next year, then the elementary teachers in grades 3 through 5 would be in the building at those elementary buildings would be subjected to a school performance profile that would be the only one reflective of a new test, where the middle school and the high schools would not be receiving a school performance profile based on a new test. And since that would in fact be the first school performance profile that would count towards teacher evaluation, there was some significant concern of the inequity of that process. So that's the reason they're holding off on moving it one more year. So for those who perhaps have not gotten started, you've got a little bit more time to get moving, or a little bit more time to get it in place. You probably don't have any more time to get moving. You need to start that yesterday. But for those of you that feel like you've got a good start on things, now you just have another year to really get it strongly in place. And several of you have started this work about 2.5 years ago. And those of you that have will have students entering 3rd grade when it's time to take this test who had 3 full years of the new Common Core standards. So they should be fully kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, entering 3rd, having had all Common Core. So that should be a nice understanding for those students, if in fact that has occurred in your buildings. A couple of additional resources I wanted to make you aware of. One is an article that was written in 1995, but I still think a very strong article, which of course just shows you how rapidly the education system moves in this country. But the article can be reached at that website, essentialschools.org/resources/101. The article is Making the Good Essential Schools Better, The Essential Question of Rigor by Kathleen Cushman. I think it's a good article. It would be a great article for a text-based seminar, a discussion with your teachers in really getting to whether or not the content that the students are learning is rigorous. It's at least a good discussion point. If you need another article, I think that might be of value to you. A couple of apps that I wanted to bring to your attention. We mentioned a few years ago the Common Core Look-Fors, which is CC. When you search for the app for an iPad or an iPhone, it's CC, L, the numeral 4, and a lowercase s. The cost, I believe, is $2.99, which is relatively inexpensive for all that you get. It is an incredible tool to be used when doing classroom walkthroughs and observations, particularly at any of the Common Core standards. When we first showed you this, it was only available for mathematics. It is now available for math, language arts, and the ISTE standards for the science and technology standards. A really valuable tool, very easy to use. You can take video, photographs of what's happening in the classroom, attach that to the observation, share that with the teacher. It's a really very slick tool. If you're interested in taking a look at it for $3, I think it's well worth your look. Also, there are 10 apps that have been recommended by teachers These I myself have not tried. So the Common Core Look Force I have. These I have not, but these are ones when looking for them. They're apps that may be valuable for your classroom teachers to be using with their students. For students that either need a little intervention boost, or maybe students that could use a little enrichment depending on their grade levels. There are apps for math and for language arts. Primarily at the elementary level. They may shift to the middle level if you want to take a look at that. And that website is listed there at educationappreviews.com. Hopefully those will be of value to you, but 10 there worth, I think, taking a look at. Typically the cost for those range from 99 cents up to $10, I think was the most expensive one I noted. Okay, this is the point in the webinar where I would be asking for your input, how you're doing with your process, what questions you have, or what kind of supports might be needed. Do you need some professional development on site? Do you need some help planning some professional development, etc.? So those are the kinds of things I would suggest that you touch base with me about if you have questions or concerns. Again, I do apologize. And for the inability to connect with you via webinar so that we could talk personally. If you happen to watch this on February 11th, which was the date it was intended to be shown or participated in via webinar, I am in the office until 4 o'clock, if not longer today. Feel free to give me a call. And I will be in the office on the 12th, the majority of the day as well. So feel free to give me a call if you need to discuss anything. If not, have a great afternoon, and we'll be in touch shortly about the June date. Tentatively hold June 19th, unless it'll end up just being a luncheon with a few of us. Talk to you soon.